I'm not saying humanity's greatest achievement was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but when you're sitting in a biodome on Proxima Centauri B, watching a blue-skinned alien girl dig through garbage for scraps, it makes you appreciate the simple things: food, opposable thumbs, and not being exiled from your own species for reasons mysteriously omitted from the orientation manual. My name's David, and no, I didn't volunteer for this assignment. Nobody volunteers to be the cultural exchange rep on a planet where the locals think humans are a delicacy and the weather forecast includes acid rain with a chance of spontaneous combustion. But here I was, armed with a sociology degree, a bargain bin survival kit, and the creeping suspicion that HR had it in for me. The alien girl, let's call her Quinn, since her real name sounded like dial-up internet dying, had been lurking near the station for 3 days. Dr. Williams, our nervous xenobiologist, insisted we not feed the locals because it might disrupt natural behavioral patterns. Right, because letting someone starve was the ethical high ground. Quinn was tiny, maybe 4 feet tall, with robin egg skin and huge golden eyes that seemed to see through all our bureaucratic nonsense. Malnourished, dressed in rags, she watched us eat like every crumb was a holy relic. Now I'm no saint. Back on Earth, I probably would have ignored a homeless guy on the sidewalk, but something about an alien world shifts your perspective. Maybe it was the way she flinched whenever a researcher passed, or the way she organized scraps of trash into neat little piles, as if order might make them more edible. Whatever the reason, on the 3rd day I cracked. "Hey!" I called, approaching her hiding spot behind a crate. She froze, eyes measuring me like I was equal parts danger and opportunity. "You hungry?" She didn't answer. My English, her modem screech dialect, not exactly compatible. But hunger doesn't need translation. I held out half a turkey sandwich. Her eyes widened. In a flash, she snatched it, retreated, and inspected it like it might explode. "It's safe," I said, sitting down nearby, "though I can't promise the taste." She nibbled, then devoured the rest like a starving wolf. When she finished, those golden eyes flicked back to me, something like gratitude, though maybe I just wanted to believe it. "David," Dr. Williams's voice sliced through the moment. She stormed over, flanked by the rest of the team: Patterson, the linguist who hated conflict, Commander Stone, our security chief already reaching for his sidearm, and Martinez, the anthropologist, scribbling notes like this was Christmas morning. "I'm sharing my lunch," I said. Sometimes the obvious answer is the only one. "You're contaminating the research environment." Williams snapped. "We have protocols for a reason. You don't know what diseases they carry or how feeding them alters behavior." Quinn ducked back behind the crate, trembling. "Relax, Doc," I said. "It's just half a sandwich. I'm not adopting her. That's not the point. We're here to observe, not interfere. What if you've disrupted centuries of social order? What if she was starving?" I shot back. "What if your precious protocols don't mean jack when there's a hungry kid involved?" Stone stepped in, voice all gravel and authority. "Dr. Williams is right. We can't compromise the mission because you've got a soft heart civilian." Soft heart. Funny, that same heart had cost me a marriage, a career, and landed me here, exiled under the guise of cultural exchange. But watching Quinn cower, I realized I was fine with being soft. The mission's about understanding cultures. I said, last I checked, that meant talking to them, not treating them like lab specimens. Martinez perked up. "Actually, David raises an interesting." "Not now, Martinez." Williams barked, her face flushed crimson. "You will cease all contact with the locals immediately." "That's an order." "From who?" I asked. "You?" Because last I checked, I work for cultural exchange, not research. Different chains of command document. The silence was thick. Williams turned purple. Stone's hand lingered on his sidearm. Martinez scribbled like his life depended on it. Quinn peeked around the crate, trying to spot the biggest threat. "This conversation isn't over," Williams said icily. "Stone, review security protocols. I won't have unauthorized contact with the locals." When they finally dispersed, I was left alone again. Quinn emerged cautiously, golden eyes fixed on me. Sorry, I muttered. My colleagues have all the charm of a tax audit. She tilted her head, studied me, and then, unexpectedly, smiled. Not a human smile exactly, but something softer, unmistakably kind. And just like that, I became her unofficial lunch provider, much to everyone else's horror. By the fifth day, Quinn started bringing gifts. She appeared with something that looked like a flower, glowing violet and warm to the touch. She placed it in my hand. For me? I asked. That's really thoughtful. Her not-quite smile widened, and for the first time, she didn't vanish after eating. She sat across from me, comfortable, like maybe she decided I wasn't just a food source. I broke the nutrition bar in half and offered her a piece. She took it, and we ate together in silence, two exiles sharing lunch at the edge of the universe. We sat in silence, sharing the nutrition bar like it was some kind of sacred ritual. The flower Quinn had given me pulsed faintly in my palm, warm and alive in a way that made my chest ache. When was the last time anyone had given me a gift with no strings attached? When was the last time someone looked at me like I mattered? You know, I said mostly to myself, I used to be somebody. Back home, I was Professor David Hawkins, Xenosociology, cross-cultural communication, tenure track, nice office, the whole academic dream. Then I pointed out that our so-called research on isolated human communities was basically colonialism with shinier name. Quinn tilted her head, watching me with those unblinking golden eyes. For a second, I could almost believe the universe wasn't completely indifferent. Turns out academia doesn't like being told they might be the problem. I went on. Next thing I know, I'm difficult to work with, not a team player, and conveniently divorced. Deep space assignments were all I had left. I laughed, but it came out hollow. Funny, I spent years studying how cultures connect, and I had to fly to another star to find someone willing to share lunch with me. That was when Quinn reached out, just the lightest brush of her fingers against my hand. Her skin was warm, silk smooth, thrumming with a faint vibration like music played too low to hear. The kindness in that tiny gesture was enough to make me look away, afraid of how much it meant. David. Williams's voice cracked through the camp like a whip. Quinn vanished instantly, faster than I could blink. The flower was gone too, tucked out of sight before anyone could label it hazardous material. There you are, William said, her expression as welcoming as a tax audit. We need to talk. Let me guess. I muttered, standing. Another complaint about my unauthorized cultural exchange program? This is serious. She shoved a tablet at me. Mission reports scrolling across the screen. Command reviewed the security footage. They're worried about contamination protocols. Contamination? I asked, though I already regretted it. Both ways, Stone said, emerging from whatever corner he'd been brooding in. We don't know what they might be carrying, and we don't know what contact with us will do to their society. I eyed them both. So what's the plan? Williams and Stone shared a look, the kind of look that always came right before bad news. Mission Command has authorized barrier protocols, Williams said. Effective immediately. Locals are to be kept at least 500 meters from the station. I blinked. You're putting up a fence? Security measures, Stone corrected. Harmless deterrence. Deterrence, I echoed. Like what? Sonic barriers. Williams admitted. Unpleasant frequencies. Not harmful. You're going to torture them into staying away. We're protecting both species, Stone said, voice flat as stone. Conversation over. But I wasn't done. Have you even considered that maybe they don't want to be protected? That maybe they can make their own choices? They're pre-industrial, Williams snapped. They lack the understanding to make informed decisions. Right, I said. Because if you don't have an internal combustion engine, obviously you can't grasp concepts like kindness or friendship. Martinez looked up from his notebook. Actually, interspecies altruism raises fascinating. Not now, Martinez. I clenched my fists. When does this start? Tomorrow morning, Stone said, his eyes narrowed. And David, if you try to bypass the barriers, you'll be detained. Understood. They left me standing there with a threat. still hanging in the air. Tomorrow, Quinn would show up at our usual spot and find herself blocked by an invisible wall of pain. She wouldn't understand why. Hell, neither did I. Humans had once again taken something simple, sharing food, and turned it into a bureaucratic nightmare. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the alien sounds outside the biodome. Somewhere out there, Quinn was curled up in her makeshift shelter, maybe dreaming of sandwiches and the strange human who gave them away. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the flower. Its violet glow pulsed against my palm like a heartbeat. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I was at the supply crates early, armed with 2 nutrition bars and the closest thing the food synthesizer could make to hot chocolate. The barriers weren't scheduled to activate until noon. That gave us maybe 1 more hour. Quinn arrived right on time, gliding out of the shadows with that uncanny liquid grace. But she stopped short, scanning the area, wary. She knew something was wrong. "Over here," I called softly. She approached slowly, watching me like a cat deciding whether to bolt. When she was close enough, I handed her the bar and gestured for her to sit. "Listen," I said, voice low, "this is our last lunch. My colleagues don't want us to be friends. They're putting up barriers, sonic ones. It'll hurt if you get close." Quinn sat beside me without eating, holding the bar in both hands as though memorizing it. "I wish I could explain," I said, "but it's not about you. It's about us. Our fear, our rules, our obsession with control." She reached out again, her fingers brushing mine. The vibration deepened, and this time it wasn't just sensation. Concepts flared in my mind, clear, vivid, undeniable. Asterisk sad. Friend David. Sad. Why? Asterisk. I jerked back, nearly falling off the crate. Her eyes widened, the hum intensifying. Not afraid. The thought whispered. Not words, but meaning. Asterisk friend David. Not afraid. Others afraid. Others make barriers. Asterisk. You can understand me? I whispered. Asterisk, not words. Feelings. Thoughts. David thoughts loud, sad, angry. Others sharp, cold. Different. But David, kind. Warm. Like food sharing. Like friend making. Asterisk. My throat went tight. She wasn't just hungry or lonely or curious. She was telepathic. Every moment we'd shared. She'd felt it. My doubts, my kindness, my anger at the mission's rules. David helped when others would not. Quinn's thought voice continued, glowing with warmth that made my eyes sting. Asterisk David shared food when others said no. David is good. Asterisk. Why we take only what scraps we can. Kesserai finished, her voice resonating like distant bells. Then her gaze softened. But perhaps now it is different. Perhaps you, David, are different. I felt Quinn's hand tighten on my arm, her silent encouragement flowing through the bond between us. I swallowed, unsure how to answer. What makes you think I'm any different from the others at the station? Because you came, the elder said simply. When you could have remained safe behind walls of sound and iron, you stepped into the night. You chose risk, not fear. Her eyes glimmered like molten gold, reflecting the aurora above. That choice speaks louder than any words. The other figure at her side leaned forward, curiosity sparking in their mind. Kesserai lifted a hand to quiet them, then turned back to me. But words have their place too. If you truly wish to be bridge and not barrier, you must share more than speech. You must share self. Quinn's pulse of thought brushed against mine, warm and nervous. Asterisk, she means a memory sharing. Deep touch, asterisk. What does that involve? I asked carefully, though part of me already guessed. It is opening your mind, Kesserai replied. Not as you do with Quinn, surface to surface, thought to thought. This is deeper. Memory, truth, the shape of who you are, unhidden. I will offer the same. If you accept, equal exchange. My throat went dry. And if I don't, then we remain what we are now, strangers meeting in shadows, a moment of curiosity that fades into fear, nothing more. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint song of the water threading its way over the crystalline stones. The aurora shimmered across the metallic growths. painting everything in green fire. I looked at Quinn, her eyes wide, her expression both fearful and hopeful. "Trust," she whispered in my mind. "I will hold you through it." I drew in a breath, steadying myself. What was one more leap when I had already stepped past the edge? "All right," I said. "I'll share, on one condition." Kesserai inclined her head. "Speak." "That you promise not to use what you see against me or against my people. Not as a weapon, only as understanding." The elder studied me for a long, heavy silence. Then she placed one hand over her chest, the gesture slow and deliberate. "On the memory of all who came before me, I swear. Understanding, not weapon." Her hand lifted, reaching toward my forehead. "Then open, young David, and see." Her touch was feather-light, but the moment her mind brushed deeper into mine, the world shifted. Suddenly I was no longer sitting on cold stone, but standing inside my own memories. My childhood by the sea, the sting of failure in lecture halls, the quiet despair of betrayal by colleagues. Every moment of loneliness, every flicker of defiance, all laid bare. And in return, I felt her presence opening as well, vast, layered with centuries, full of voices that were not only hers but the echoes of her people. I saw children chasing light among crystal forests, great councils held beneath singing stone, grief etched into the fabric of memory from losses I could scarcely comprehend. And beneath it all, a steady current of resilience. Not scavengers, not primitives. A civilization built on connection, woven through time itself. When the exchange ended, I staggered back, my chest heaving. Quinn caught my arm, steadying me. My eyes blurred with tears I hadn't realized were falling. Kesserai's expression was solemn, but her voice carried warmth. "You are what I hoped, David. Broken, yes, but broken in ways that leave you open, not closed. That is rare among your kind." Her hand lowered, and I could still feel echoes of her presence in my mind, like a song fading into silence. "If even one of your people can see us as you do, then perhaps the old pattern is not unbreakable. Perhaps this time will be different." I let out a shaky laugh. "Then we both have a lot of work to do." Quinn's laughter joined mine, bright and quick, spilling into my thoughts. And for the first time since stepping foot on this world, I didn't feel like an intruder. I felt like a guest, and maybe, just maybe, a friend. Martinez was already reaching for his tablet, his fingers flying over the data input keys. If I could present this as a comprehensive research opportunity, frame it in terms of advancing our understanding of alien, world building, it might just bypass Williams' reflexive caution. "I'll help you write the proposal," Martinez said, his eyes still on the screen. "But you know Williams. She won't move on speculation. We'll need hard evidence. Something visual, something she can't dismiss as one of your hunches." I fought the urge to smile. "Oh, you'll get something visual," I thought grimly. "If I can get you sensor readings," I said aloud, "enough to suggest active processes in the crystals. Would you present it?" "Not just present it," Martinez said, looking up now, excitement flickering behind his glasses. "I'd fight for it. If there's even a chance these formations are artificial or contain active energy systems, it's not just geology, it's a window into their culture. Into them." The word sent a chill down my spine. Into them. He didn't realize how literal that might soon become. "Good," I said softly. "Then we should move fast. Today, before the next security shift." Martinez nodded slowly. "I'll draft a request for a full team survey. Williams will want me to justify every discipline we include: security, linguistics, bio, electroanalysis. But if I frame it as a coordinated discovery, she'll have a hard time saying no." As he typed, I imagined the look on Williams' face when the archaeological discovery turned into a telepathic contact event. My stomach twisted with guilt and a strange exhilaration. If this worked, it would change everything. If it didn't, well, there might not be a second chance. Martinez glanced up. "You look like a man about to jump off a cliff." "Maybe I am," I said, "but sometimes you have to jump to reach the other side." He frowned but didn't press. Give me an hour. I'll get this through to Williams. I stood, feeling the weight of the morning settle over me. Thank you, Martinez. You won't regret this. As I walked back to my quarters, my pulse was hammering. In less than 12 hours, the research team would walk out of their fortress, believing they were about to make the first major discovery of their careers. Instead, they'd be stepping into an encounter that would either shatter their fear or shatter everything else. Somewhere out beyond the barriers, Quinn was waiting. I could feel her presence like a faint warmth at the edge of my thoughts. "We are ready," she whispered. "Are you?" I didn't answer. I wasn't sure if the knot in my chest was hope or terror, that these beings were not a threat to be neutralized, but a people trying to survive the disruption of their world. The realization slid under Stone's walls like water under a door, soft but relentless. His grip on the sidearm trembled, then stilled. The ripple of shared thought widened again, reaching deeper this time, linking the entire group in a single lattice of sensation. It was like standing inside a living tapestry of memories. Images flickered through all of us. The first landing ships descending like falling suns, the soil blackening with metal smoke, children like Quinn scavenging at the edges of poisoned streams, Kesserai standing beneath a sky fractured by contrails, singing to the crystals to hold them together as her people fled. For a heartbeat, we weren't human or alien. We were simply present, minds overlapping, fear and grief and hope rising together in a single chord that rang to formations like struck glass. Patterson fell to his knees, clutching his head, but not from pain. Tears ran down his face, silent and uncomprehending. Martinez's tablet slipped from nerveless fingers as he whispered, "They're alive! All of it is alive!" Williams, always a skeptic, stood rigid, but her eyes were wet, reflecting the shifting light of the crystals. Stone's voice, when it came, was hoarse and stripped of command. "Stop this." But it wasn't an order. It was a plea, and Quinn heard it. Slowly, carefully, she loosened the contact. The lattice dissolved like mist in sunlight. Each mind returned to itself, disoriented, breathing hard as though they'd surfaced from deep water. Silence stretched. The alien wind moved through the crystal towers, singing soft harmonics that sounded impossibly like a lullaby. William spoke first, her voice thin but steady. This change is everything." She turned to me, eyes sharp and searching. "David, what the hell did you bring us into?" "They brought us into it," I said quietly, still feeling Quinn's hand in mine. "They just wanted us to understand." Stone holstered his sidearm, but didn't let go of it completely. His eyes moved from Quinn to Kesserai to me. "Understanding is one thing," he said. "But what happens when the rest of the directorate finds out, when the other ships arrive?" Kesserai stepped forward then, her presence calm but unyielding. Her mental voice touched us all at once, no longer hidden. "Then you must decide which story you will tell, the one of fear or the one of truth." No one spoke. The crystals sang. And for the first time since we'd landed on this world, I felt a flicker of real, dangerous hope, moving at its usual glacial pace, weighed down by procedure, while lives ticked away in silence. "They won't last 6 months," Martinez said flatly. His enthusiasm had burned down to something harder, more urgent. We all saw the signs of malnutrition, the slowed crystal growth. Kesserai wasn't exaggerating when she said they were desperate. Stone folded his arms, jaw tight. "And what exactly are you proposing? That we ignore mission command and start running food drops? That we share supplies with an unvetted indigenous population? You know damn well that's outside our authority." "Outside our authority," Martinez shot back, "but inside our responsibility. We're the ones who disrupted their ecosystem. We caused this." Williams rubbed at her temples, visibly torn between scientific detachment and human conscience. "Command will argue that direct aid risks dependency, contamination of cultural development, any number of justifications. But none of that changes the fact that these people are starving." Patterson, usually the quietest among us, spoke up then. His voice was low, almost ashamed. "I keep replaying what they showed us. The hunger, the children. It wasn't just words or images. I felt it. How do I go back to pretending that's not happening? The silence after that was heavier than any protocol. Finally, all eyes turned toward me, the one who had made the first move, the one who had already stepped outside the lines. "They're right," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "We can't wait for Earth to make up its mind. If we do, by the time the committees finish their analysis, there won't be anyone left to help." Stone's eyes narrowed. "So what's your plan, David? Smuggle rations past the barriers? Start a shadow aid program on your own?" I met his gaze. "No, we do it. Together. Quietly, carefully. Enough to keep them alive until the ecosystem recovers. Enough to buy time for the politics to catch up with reality." Williams looked at me as though I'd suggested dismantling the station with a wrench. "Do you have any idea what you're saying? If Mission Command finds out—" "They will," I interrupted. "Eventually. But by then, maybe it won't matter. Maybe by then they'll be alive to thank us instead of dead, to prove our obedience." No one answered right away. But in the strained silence, I saw it. The crack forming in the wall of procedure, the seed of rebellion taking root. Kesarai's words came back to me, carried like a whisper on memory. "Which story will you tell? The one of fear or the one of truth?" I already knew my answer, moving at its usual glacial pace while people suffered. "There might be another way," Patterson said suddenly. "The communication breakthrough we've achieved. If we could establish ongoing contact, regular dialogue, we could learn about their needs and capabilities. Maybe find ways to help that don't require official authorization." Stone's expression suggested he was not enthusiastic about more unauthorized contact protocols. Any assistance to indigenous populations has to go through proper channels. We can't just start handing out food and supplies without mission approval. "We're not talking about handing out supplies," I said, "an idea forming. We're talking about trade, cultural and technological exchange. They have knowledge we need. We have resources they need. That's not charity. That's cooperation." Williams looked intrigued despite herself. "What kind of knowledge?" "Ecological restoration techniques." I said, thinking about what we'd learned during the telepathic contact. They've been managing this planet's ecosystem for centuries. They know how to heal the damage our landing caused, how to accelerate the recovery process. Telepathic communication protocols. Martinez added excitedly, the applications for human psychology, for treating communication disorders, for advancing our understanding of consciousness itself. And we have medical knowledge, material science, agricultural techniques, Patterson continued. Things that could help their people survive the transition period while their natural systems recover. Stone frowned. "You're talking about establishing permanent contact with an alien species without authorization from Earth. The security implications alone, asterisk, are outweighed by the humanitarian implications." I interrupted. "These people are dying, Commander, and we have the power to help them. If we're discovered to be conducting unauthorized trade with indigenous populations." Then we explained that we were following the prime directive of preserving life. Williams said quietly, "Sometimes the right thing to do and the authorized thing to do aren't the same thing." Coming from Williams, who'd spent the entire mission prioritizing protocols over people, the statement carried enormous weight. If even she was ready to bend the rules for the greater good, maybe there was hope for genuine cooperation. The decision to establish regular contact with the telepaths wasn't made in a single dramatic moment. Instead, it evolved over several days of careful discussion, individual soul-searching, and gradual recognition that sometimes the most important decisions are the ones you make despite the rules, not because of them. Martinez became our primary liaison, his anthropological training, making him the logical choice for managing cultural exchange. Patterson worked on developing communication protocols that could function without the intimate telepathic contact that made some team members uncomfortable. Williams focused on identifying resource needs and potential solutions, approaching the problem with the same analytical thoroughness she brought to geological surveys. And Stone, despite his obvious reservations about the security implications, agreed to facilitate the contacts as long as they remained limited in scope and carefully documented. I found myself in the strained position of being both the catalyst for the cooperation and somewhat peripheral to its implementation. having been the one to break protocol in the first place. My continued involvement was seen as potentially compromising to the team's credibility if the situation ever came under official scrutiny, which was fine with me. Some of the most important work happened behind the scenes. The first official exchange session took place a week after the initial contact, in the crystal formations that had become our de facto meeting ground. Quinn was there, along with Kesserai and 3 other adults whose names translated roughly to Grove Singer, Stone Shaper, and Mind Weaver. The telepods brought knowledge that revolutionized our understanding of ecological restoration, techniques for accelerating soil recovery, methods for encouraging native plant growth, strategies for reintroducing displaced wildlife populations. In exchange, we shared medical knowledge that could help treat malnutrition and prevent disease, along with material science information that could improve their shelter construction. But the most remarkable exchange wasn't technological. It was personal. Your people learn quickly, Kesserai observed during one of the sessions. But you also fear quickly. Always a concern about security, about control, about what others will think. Fear isn't always a bad thing, Martinez replied through Patterson's translation system. It helps us survive, helps us make careful decisions. Yes, the elder agreed, but fear can also prevent survival, can prevent the connections that make life worth preserving. She gestured toward me where I sat slightly apart from the main group, documenting the session for my own records. Friend David understand this. Chose connection over safety. Understanding over protocol. This is why the sharing began. Williams looked over at me, her expression thoughtful. David's actions were irregular, but they led to extraordinary results. Irregular? Quinn repeated, testing the word through the translation system, meaning not following established patterns. Essentially, yes. Among our people, we have a saying, the most beautiful crystals grow where the pattern breaks. Perhaps irregularity is not always a flaw. Over the following weeks, the exchanges continued and deepened. The research team learned techniques that revolutionized our understanding of planetary ecology, while the telepods gained access to knowledge that improved their people's health and living conditions. More importantly, both species learned that cooperation was possible, that differences in biology, psychology, and culture didn't have to mean conflict. The reports we sent to Mission Command carefully documented the scientific and technological benefits of the ongoing contact, while downplaying the extent to which we'd exceeded our original authorization. It was bureaucratic sleight of hand, but it worked. Earth was too focused on the practical benefits to question the methods too closely. And slowly, gradually, life improved for everyone involved. The telepod's ecosystem began to recover using accelerated restoration techniques. The research team's scientific output increased dramatically thanks to insights gained through cultural exchange. Even Stone admitted that the security situation had stabilized as trust developed between the two species. But the most significant change was personal. 3 months after that first shared lunch, I found myself sitting with Quinn in the crystal formations, watching Proxima Centauri set behind the alien landscape. The research mission was scheduled to end in another 6 months. I'd been informed that my next assignment would be a desk job on a space station somewhere in the outer colonies. Punishment disguised as a lateral transfer.